Hello and welcome to the January 2014 edition of Mytech U. I'm excited about our discussion today because it doesn't matter what business you're in, this topic applies to you. Every organization out there needs to be great at finding leaders and building and developing leadership, and that's something that we all are challenged with, or at least I know that we are challenged with it. It's always, so I don't want to presume. But we're very fortunate to have a couple folks from Lumin Advantage Consulting, Megan and Tori, Victoria, joining us today and going through this topic of leadership, and what got you here won't get you there. So Megan, I believe you're going to be leading the conversation, so take it away and thank you for joining us. Oh, and one last comment, please use the questions in your control panel. There is a Q&A. Throw some questions out there, and we will either answer them online or most likely interject them into the conversation. So please do that as a little housekeeping note. But with that said, Megan, please take it away.
Great, thank you. Good morning and afternoon, I guess, and welcome. We're excited, as Nathan said, to be with you all today. I'm Megan, and my business partner, Tori, is with me here. And we actually met Nathan at the Tech Pulse conference last year, and we're really impressed by the conference itself and Mytech in particular with regard to how the topics at the conference were not just focused on technology, but also on the people side of business. And so that's really the business that we're in. We are organization and employee development consultants, and we work with organizations to focus on that people side and to really maximize their people sources to leverage business and help them get the outcomes that they're looking for. So I'm going to turn it over to Tori here.
Good afternoon. In Minnesota, we're actually, have to confess, we are out in sunny California, but we're thinking of you, and we're sorry we're not back there in the snow and the cold with you. I am Tori Littlefield at Lumin Advantage. Megan and I have been doing the kind of work that we do for about the past 12 years or so. And we're excited to be with you today to talk about a common challenge that we run across in our work. And it is one of the most common challenges, and it's also an opportunity for folks like you on the people side of your companies. And the idea we're going to talk about today is the difference between the people that you hire and the people that you need now or in the future in your leadership roles. So we are guessing that you've probably hired most of your employees based on their experience and based on their training and based on their education, and that you've hired them based on their technical skills, their discipline skills, and how well they can perform in your companies as individual contributors. So here's the deal. The technical skills that you base your hiring decisions on are often not the same skills that your employees need when you move them into a team leadership role or when you promote them into supervision or management. The bottom line is that positions like this need people who have people skills and who have communication skills and leadership skills. And again, the people that you hire based just on your technical skills may not have these. So with below par leadership skills in your folks, your bottom line is likely to suffer. So in this webinar, Megan and I are going to talk about ways that companies can develop leaders who are successful not only on the technical side, but also on the people side as well.
So to get started here, we are going to do a little poll and hear from you. Oh. Sorry, not that. We didn't want you to hear that. We want to find out a little bit about how you choose the people that you do choose to move into team leadership positions or supervision or management. So we have a few options here, and I think Nathan's working on launching the poll for us. So we're looking at Thank you. We're looking at things like years of experience in the field or in their position, the quality of their work product, so their performance, how reliable of a performer and an employee are they? Do they come on time? Do they meet their deadlines? And how productive are they? Are they getting their work done? Are they getting 100% done? Are they getting 150% time, 150% done? What kind of production do they have? And or their people skills. How well do they communicate with others? How well they're able to manage conflict, make decisions, think strategically and critically, those kinds of skills. So doing a little poll here. From your perspective and in your companies, how do you choose those people that move into the team leadership, supervision, or management roles?
And while we're getting, it looks like we're getting some answers in here. While we're getting those, I'll tell you, Megan, you're hitting this nail right on the head. I think we usually, just to throw it out, because they don't allow me to vote on this poll. So just to throw my 2 cents out there. Usually it's experience and probably productivity. And unfortunately, I think what we're going to learn today, but it's not as much on their people skills necessarily, but definitely on their experience and productivity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My guess is that's what we're going to see.
So it looks like we've got a couple more folks that, as far as the people that are online, if they could finish, we'll close out the poll here momentarily. But right now we're seeing that some of them are because of, some have selected the years of experience, some have selected quality of their work and reliability, but everyone so far has selected people skills.
Everyone.
Everyone
has.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I'll go ahead and, do you want me to keep it open just a little longer, or do you want me to close the poll?
You can close it out. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So that is actually a great sign because, as Nathan just mentioned, and as Tori mentioned earlier, one of the biggest challenges that we see in organizations is this idea that what got you here isn't necessarily going to get you there. So the things that we look for in effective employees as individual contributors are typically things like how much experience are they bringing to the position? What is the quality of their work, and how quickly can they get work done? And as we're going to talk through today, while those skills are necessary, they are not sufficient when people move from an individual or technically focused role into one that requires getting work done with and through others. That's an entirely different skill set, and that's again what we're going to walk through today.
So, and this is Tori. So I'm not surprised that we're essentially preaching to the choir today, because the folks who are interested in making sure that their folks have people skills and in ways to improve, making sure that that happens are, of course, folks that will be on the line with us today. And so we're happy to have you here and to see if we can sort of reflect on what you have been doing in your practice and perhaps give you some ideas about ways that you can make that practice even better. So let's see how all of this works here. So when folks are initially hired, their technical skills are essentially the table stakes that get them through the door and get them into your building or into your workplace. And you expect excellent performance from them based on their technical job descriptions. And if folks that you hire based on their technical skills aren't living up to your expectations, it's always possible to provide training for them, provide feedback for them, and that adds to their knowledge base and brings them up to speed. And so I guess the hard fact in business is that if they can't come up to speed, you can always replace them. And so historically, and this will sound familiar to folks, the individual technical performance was what was expected. Now today, as you know, and as you are showing in your practice, things have changed. And it's really time that organizations redefine skills. It sounds, if you folks are already hiring based on people skills, you all are ahead of the curve in terms of realizing that the soft skills are as important as the hard skills in today's marketplace and in today's workforce. So I think one of the things that really has contributed to that is the team environment that we see today. Having people skills is not just an option anymore. It's a gotta have. And it's really a multiplier, a multiplication factor, as we showed in the current slide, that directly impacts employee performance. And performance, of course, is what drives your business success. Now, if you've hired folks based on people skills, you know that just as with technical skills, there's going to be variation in how well they're able to demonstrate those. And you probably also know that if you have folks around who are struggling with people skills or maybe not even aware of their importance, that it has an impact on the folks around them in terms of lowered morale by employees, less engagement in the workplace, lost work time, and poor team performance. Now, we've seen organizations where they have struggled to balance the people skills with folks who are excellent in their technical performance. And it can be a real struggle to think, well, we've got someone who is so good in the sales that they do, or we have someone who's so good in letting us know how our numbers and our finances are going, but that's offset by the person's inability to interact with folks in ways that they find positive. And it is really always a struggle. Can we afford to lose this person who has these great technical skills, but maybe who doesn't live up to our expectations of how people interact with each other these days? The bottom line really is, in these cases, the bottom line. Someone who doesn't have these sorts of skills lowers the performance of others, and that literally does contribute to your bottom line. So we have seen a lot in the news lately, and you probably have too, not just locally in the state and the region, but nationally as well, about the idea of a skills gap. We hear a lot about companies not being able to find folks to fill the positions that they have open, particularly in some of the STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, and math. And we spell STEM with 2 M's, so it also includes manufacturing as well. And companies say we can't find the right people to hire. They report out, and it is implied that it's the technical skills that are missing. And we've seen this all over the news for the last 2 or 3 years. But in our work that we do on the people side of business, we are seeing increasingly that the kind of skills gap is something different than the technical skills being missing.
So what you see here is essentially our view from the field. So as Tori mentioned, we've been doing this for several years, and we see this skills gap firsthand. And what we see over and over, time and time again, is that the poll that we provided at the beginning in terms of what things are you really looking for, what is it that causes employees to stand out in an organization and kind of tips the scales for them to be pegged as the ones that are going to move up and move forward. And typically, even if people are factoring in the people skills side of things, what folks often get noticed for first is their production and their technical ability and how much work they get done, how profitable they are, things of that nature. And so it's easy to get sidetracked by those technical skills and assume that if someone is good at doing that type of work, at doing the work that they went to school for, that they received training for, that they have certifications for, then surely if we move them into a position where they are overseeing people who are doing that kind of work, they will be equally as effective. However, that is almost always not the case. And unless people are also factoring in looking at things like the people skills or the soft skills when they're considering moving folks into those either team leadership or more positional leaders like supervision, management, or kind of your top leaders. And so a couple of issues here. One is certainly the skills gap, as Tori just talked about, and the difference between those technical and those soft skills. And the second thing really is helping folks transition from a contributor to a manager. So even if they've got some people skills, we know that there are additional challenges moving from a technical position into a leadership position. A lot of times that move into leadership represents a promotion, and so that's rewarding and that's exciting for folks. However, it can be very challenging for them to let go of the previous position. They've gone to school and they've received training in that technical area for a reason. They're passionate about it. And when you move them into supervision or leadership, all of a sudden they're often not getting to do that work, but rather they're needing to get that work done through others. So they are removed from that process a little bit. And when we think about people at work, if you kind of see this as a triangle, if you will, the 3 points of the triangle represent different ways or things that people focus on and are really passionate about at work. Some folks are focused on ideas, and they like to do the thinking part of the work. So the how are we going to go about doing this, and what are the methods that we can use to get this work done. Other people focus on the things, on the materials, on the resources, on the science behind what they're doing. And then the third group of people focus on people. So they focus on development, they focus on support and feedback, they focus on delegating and, again, getting work done through others. So between ideas, things, and people, typically what we see as a challenge when moving from individual contributor into supervisor is that it's a move from either ideas or things to that people focus. And that's not always intuitive for folks because they're in the same organization. Maybe their office moved, but they're still going to the same place to work. They're still surrounded likely by the same type of work that they were before, but their role in that work has shifted. So that letting go of the old job can be a huge hurdle to the transition from contributor to leader. And the other thing that we see in organizations, particularly smaller organizations, is the moving from, you may have heard the phrase bud to boss. So what happens is if you're an individual contributor with other individuals and working, you may be working, you may have things that are integrated, but you're working separately. And then you move into a supervisor of those people that were previously your peers. That also is one of the things that we've seen is a huge challenge for folks, again, and we see this more often in small organizations that tend to do a lot of promotion from within. So this, not only are we seeing a skills gap between those technical skills and the soft skills, if you will, but we're also seeing a need to recognize and address the identity change, essentially, that this represents for folks who their view about work needs to change. And that's not always something that's addressed in the transition either.
So Megan, you brought up some great points that I guess I would, I know that just to interject, I don't know, I might be seeding some of the things you're already going to discuss later in the presentation. So, because I haven't heard this presentation before, but we've experienced a couple of the things that you just described, which is we've people who have engineers who have really enjoyed serving our customers, and part of not only are they passionate about it, as you were referencing, but they also feel fulfilled by the satisfaction that they have helped someone. And so, like, when the customer gives them feedback, say, thank you so much, I appreciate that you helped me out and you solved my problem, that gives them, energy, right? That feeds them. And then we had someone like that moved into a supervisory position, and essentially that went away almost exclusively. And all the other things, such as doing HR and dealing with, those kind of things, and that made this person unhappy. And so we ended up putting them back into just a customer-facing position, and now they're happy again because of that. We've also experienced where someone who was a very productive person got along great with other people and put them into a leadership position, and it really wasn't in alignment with their personality to change to be able to guide and lead people, quite frankly. So that, so we really missed the mark with a couple of our staff in the last several years on how do we identify that stuff ahead of time? How can we, realize before we put someone into a position that makes them unhappy or put someone in a position that causes strife, what are the things that we can do to help identify those things that, before we put them in that position and set them up for potential failure?
Yeah, Nathan, those are actually two great examples, both of that the skills gap. The latter example you provided is really one where somebody was likely very technically oriented but weren't prepared, didn't have the training, didn't have the temperament necessarily to work with people. And the former is really around that change in identity. And if you're getting positive feedback from your customers and that's rewarding to you, you're not likely to get that type of feedback from your supervisees. So if it really is a change to people's orientation to work and what is satisfying and what's what is interesting. And so you referenced a couple really important points. One is, how do you identify those people? And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. And the second thing that you mentioned is that in organizations where you are promoting from within and you're trying to make this change from technical to individual contributor to supervisor, it's really important for people to say, you know what, this is not for me, and to be able to go back. Because in the event that you can't capture all those skills, somebody doesn't really understand the full picture of the job before they move into it, and they want to try it out, it's okay if they say this is not for me and this doesn't work. Because if they stay in that position feeling like they're ineffective and they don't know what they're doing, it can cause all sorts of other problems, from a morale and performance and productivity of the people that person is affecting. So two really good points, and the part about how do you spot these people we're going to get to here in just a minute. Thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, thank you. And the other thing about like what you just said is, is allowing them and having an environment where they can feel free to communicate that this isn't really a good fit for them. Because if you don't, then, we would have lost a couple really good people, right? So we had found good people, but we would have lost them because we just had them in the wrong spot. So anyway, thank you for the feedback.
Yep, absolutely.
So as we mentioned, and then we'll move to how do you assign these people and what do you do once you found them, we were talking about our view from the field, and we just wanted to let you know research is starting to show up on this same topic. If you ask executives what kind of skills gap do you see out there, only about 22% of them are saying, well, it's a technical skills gap, and the rest, not the rest, but 44% of them, twice as many, are saying what we're seeing is a soft skills gap. So we're just starting to see that stuff show up in the literature now. And to sort of summarize what we've said so far, the thing that really is going to tip the balance towards being able to lead teams, supervise, and manage are the people side of the skill set. And we've listed out some here that we commonly work with when folks bring us in to help them develop people skills in their new supervisors or leaders: the resilience, knowing themselves, having team skills, being able to make decisions and carry them out, decisiveness, and good communication skills. So those are all those are all teachable and learnable skills. So it's not just a matter of selecting someone in or out for the success in leadership. So let's get to those. So what can you do about all of this, assuming we've made the case? What you can do about this is we've identified sort of three things. The first of those has to do with the initial choices that you make when you are hiring people. One of the things hiring managers do and small businesses is, as we mentioned before, often focus on the technical side of things because you do need to have your technical slots filled, and sort of assume that you can tell what kind of a person you're hiring in terms of their people skills while you're interacting with them during the hiring process. What we recommend is that during the interview process that you include questions and focus on the topic of interpersonal skills by using behaviorally based questions that actually ask people how did they interact with people in the past. Given a certain challenging situation or being put into a team leadership role, what were the things that they did intentionally to make sure that there were good working relationships within the team, to make sure that people felt appreciated, to mediate any sorts of disputes that might have arisen in team members. So to make sure that they actually know about and have demonstrated people-related skills in the past, and make that explicitly a part of the interviewing process. Another way you can go about finding out whether people have good people skills or the potential for those is by using assessments and surveys. We base a lot of our work, we find baseline snapshots by having folks complete certain surveys that we use. And the point of those surveys is particularly to access interpersonal skills, thought sorts of skills, being able to take the people factor in other people into account, knowing how to motivate others, and knowing how to get folks engaged and enthusiastic about doing the work that needs to be done. So you can actually, as part of a hiring process, assess whether folks are coming in with people skills that you might want them to use as an individual contributor or later on in leadership positions. And a third thing we also recommend is that when you're checking your references, don't just check for their technical abilities, but do explicitly check to find out how well did these people interact and work with and motivate the folks that they worked with in their previous positions. So if you do some or all of these things, you're biasing yourself in favor of hiring folks not only who come in with the technical skills, but who also come in with the soft skills that you're gonna need. A second thing that you can do is, with folks you've already hired, is prepare your individual contributors for potential leaderships in the future by doing the things that we listed here. Identify the folks that you've hired who accidentally happen to bring along with them some people skills and interpersonal skills and leadership skills. And so using actually some of the methods we talked about before, you can find out who in our group of tech folks have, in addition, these other skills. And then, this is sort of a type of succession planning, you can intentionally provide training for them on how to use these maybe natural skills they come up with in a business environment in ways that contribute to productivity and to the bottom line. And not only do you need to train them about this stuff, but you also need to give them practice actually using the skills that they've been trained about. So it's like it's kind of like riding a bicycle. You know, you can train somebody by reading a book and seeing movies and pictures and things about what it's like to ride a bicycle until you actually get out there and try it yourself. You don't actually take that learning to heart and really gain command over it. And then a third thing that we recommend, which is really an economical way of preparing potential leaders, is to folks you've identified as having potential to match them up with mentors internal to your company who you know have good interpersonal and leadership skills. And this benefits the company in a couple of ways. One is it provides role models for your potential leaders, but it also gives your more senior leaders a reason to and an opportunity to intentionally think about their own leadership and how things that they do influence not only your developing leaders, but influence the other employees in the organization. More folks have people and leadership skills innately and just kind of use them without thinking than people who intentionally understand what their own skill set is and how it has an impact on production and the bottom line. So this last idea of the mentoring really has kind of a win-win approach to it.
Tori, this is, I'm wondering about that because, you know, I remember one of the first supervisors I ever had said you should always be training your replacement. Right, so that's one of the things we try and work through our leadership team here is always be looking for those people inside your inside your team that you may be able to develop into leaders. And one of the comments you made really resonated with me, is the fact that most people just innately use the skill sets they have as opposed to being aware of and necessarily being intentional about some of their methodology. Maybe I'm not trying to take words out of your mouth or put words in your mouth, but what are some of the things that, other than just having them observe you and maybe just talking through scenarios, are there things that you would recommend putting people through to help, if you've identified someone as a potential leader, to help mentor and coach them into a leadership position? Or have you found some success with organizations you work with?
There are, and you didn't take words out of my mouth. You said exactly what we're talking about here. Let me switch it over to Megan to give you some examples.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because what Tori said earlier about the practice piece, that's really where the rubber hits the road, or for some piece the rubber hits the sky, and it's telling people about something, whether it's in a lunch and learn or whether it's in a conversation with a mentor in their organization, that's interesting. It can have an impact on their awareness. They might be able to observe something in their context that they hadn't looked at before. But until they actually do something with it, till they're given an opportunity to try something out, then the learning doesn't really happen. Knowledge happens, but learning doesn't happen. And so one of the things that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this on the next slide, which you were already seeing, is that, again, whether it's in a formal training program or something more informal like mentoring, giving people an opportunity to do things like stretch assignments or allowing them to try working in maybe a different department or in a different discipline. So you're getting them out of their comfort zone, and that's the key. What can people do that's even slightly different than what they're currently doing, so that it's going to allow them to put into practice intentionally the new things that they're beginning to hear about and learn about, again, whether it's through a more formal training program or informally with a mentor. So it might be allowing somebody to lead a project, or maybe it's shadowing their mentor at meetings, or doing some training ahead of time to let that protege, that mentee, lead a portion of the meeting. So anything that's going to give them an opportunity to actually apply or practice or get exposure to or move out of their comfort zone in any little bit, those are the types of things that really can be done any day. Whereas things like we're going to talk about next may require a little bit more kind of time commitment and structure. But again, that idea about the mentoring program really being one that is both a succession plan as well as a leadership training program. Any of those day-to-day tasks that allow the mentees to just get a different perspective of the organization, how somebody else operates as a leader, and hopefully give them an opportunity to practice some new skills. Those are the things that you're working towards. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'll, if we have time, I have a follow-up. I think we need to keep going just from a time perspective to make sure we get to the content. But as a follow-up to that, if we have time, is a lot of small businesses, as they're growing, they don't necessarily have the luxury of time because they haven't been able to perfectly forecast exactly when they're going to put people in leadership positions. And sometimes you got to put someone in the position, and then you have to almost retroactively or in parallel coach them and train them on these things. And so I'm curious how that might have a different approach or an identical approach. But like I said, maybe we should get to the content before I throw that follow-up question.
Well, actually, that's a perfect segue, because what we've talked about so far in terms of the what can you do, one is to, the extremely proactive approach, and one that we're big supporters of, is to look for these types of skills and the balance between them during hiring, right? And then the second is to identify those emerging leaders or those people who have the skills that fit with the culture of the organization that you want to see in your leaders, and kind of groom them to become your next generation of leaders. The third thing that you're seeing now is training, or in some cases maybe retraining, the leaders that you already have. So this speaks directly to your point about, because an organization was growing very rapidly and their primary focus is on service delivery, it's on making the widget, it's on what the business was created to do, they don't always have the time to think about more of these kind of internal types of strategies and orientations. So this approach is, like we've mentioned here, the focus is more on expanding their expertise to include soft skills. So supporting their expansion of what they do day to day to include some of these soft skills, and to establish a system that really rewards those things. So in some organizations, these competencies may not be part of an evaluation. They might not be in the vernacular of the organization. So introducing that as part of the performance conversation, even if somebody hasn't had the opportunity to get evaluated on that in the past, it begins the conversation. So it really just gets things moving towards the direction. This really represents, in some organizations, particularly smaller ones, an organizational change, where we're looking at our organization in a different way. So we're not just looking at what we do technically, but we're looking at how we do it. And then the third thing here is to help the leaders that you have figure out how to then train and develop these types of skills in the people that are coming behind them. So they are built into that succession plan. And the caveats about training here are, again, we're not suggesting that people train on the what. We're not, soft skills is not just learning how to do a performance evaluation, or learning what is in the policy around employee benefits. We're really talking about the how and the why. So this is an example of a model or an approach to training that can be done for either emerging leaders, those potential leaders, or leaders who are already in the position and need some skills developed on the job. That it's not just in time, or it's not just in case, it's just in time. So you see here that we've got the technical skills and experience at the center of this bullseye, right? That's their ticket. That's how they got in the door. That's necessary to get the work done that the business relies on. But the rest of the three rings there have to do with self-awareness. So who am I as a leader? Who am I as an individual? The interpersonal and team skills, and really the organizational knowledge as well. And so if you've got leaders who are in positions already, providing them with daily opportunities to the interest of time here, I'm going to skip to the next. Providing them with opportunities to do this. So is it possible to have, a conversation over lunch about a particular, maybe it's active listening, maybe it's effective feedback, whatever the topic is that is identified as a gap or an area of importance to the organization, have some training on it. Give your leaders opportunities to get feedback, either from their supervisor, from peers, from the people that they're supervising. Give them time to think about it. What worked well when I tried this new thing out, and what would I want to improve moving forward, and then give them a chance to apply it again. So it doesn't have to be anything complex, but if you consider this, give the piece of information, let them try it out, give them some feedback, give them some time to think about what they would do differently, and then try it again. That kind of thing can happen really any day and every day. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a big, long leadership program. It doesn't have to be, a big commitment in terms of a mentoring program. But it could just start, particularly for smaller businesses, on conversations that allow for training, feedback, reflection, and application.
Just to add to what Megan just said, if someone has training and then they try it out and have an experience, we all know that just because you have an experience doesn't mean you learn anything from it. And so it's essential that folks get feedback on how they did, that they have an opportunity to reflect and think about how did it go, what am I going to do differently, and then try it again. So it really is a systems approach. And our last slide here, we just want to speak to the ROI of all of this stuff. The bottom line is the bottom line. And by being intentional about developing the people side of your folks, organizations who've done that, we've seen have increased retention and morale, engagement in employees, happier faces, and the bottom line is productivity. And that's what it's all about, and that's the thing, ultimately, that small businesses and large, any business has to have. So that's our take on how the people side of business is important, how it can be integrated into the work that's already going on, and how this is something that can start small, have an impact even then, and then grow as the company has additional time and resources to contribute to it.
Yeah, thank you. So Victoria, one of the things you were speaking of earlier, just going back just to throw maybe a question in here that could be a tactical takeaway, is when the two of you were talking about the hiring process and doing interviews, is there an aspect or some best practices or at least a success story that you've heard of relative to conducting an interview that helps identify alignment with either values, other than just the technical, right? As far as being in alignment with your organization's culture and the people side. Is there any particular tips or tricks?
Yep, absolutely. We worked for the hospital system in New York State, and they had shifted towards, in their interview process, having a people side of their interview. And in fact, they even included the team that the new hire would be working with conducted the people skills side of the interview. They used behaviorally based interviewing, which is, I think, essential because it picks up on what the person has done, what they can do. And what they found was when they hired people who went through that process and who actually were interviewed by the team they were going to be working with, subsequently they had much lower turnover rates. They had much higher satisfaction on the existing team members about the new person that they had brought in, and they found that the new person was much more rapidly integrated into the team environment. So that's one that comes immediately to mind.
Well, that's perfect, and I can say we haven't done exactly that, but we've done something along those lines where we've separated the technical aspect of their interviews and the people aspect of their interviews, and we have experienced the exact same kind of things, and so I was hoping that there would be takeaway, because that one thing that we did in our hiring process has made huge impacts, and it's something that can be, I'm sure there's a lot of tactical and learning that can be done there. We learned over a couple-year period, and we're still learning, but doing that one thing helped us tremendously. So for those of you listening online and right now, as well as watching later, you know, I know that the two of you recommend that, and that's something that that one little thing can help you go a long way in this process.
Absolutely.
So, and thank you both very much, Tori and Megan. The contact information is on the screen for those two. Please reach out if you have any questions. You can also reach out to me, and I can get you in touch with them. But it is 12:01, and so we are going to sign out and say thank you, everyone, again, who was participated online today and who will be watching in the future. And Megan and Tori, thank you very much for your time and your wisdom you shared with us today.
Thank you.